This is a comparison showing some of the similarities between a vintage Wested Raiders jacket to the Steele & Jones Last Crusade Smithsonian jacket. They actually share a lot of the same DNA, and you can see clearly that Wested did not change their construction methods so much between the movies. For example, the pocket size on their vintage Raiders jacket is basically the same size and shape as the Crusade jacket. The difference being in the scalloping of the pockets, flaps. On the Crusade jacket has a more pronounced curve, and on Wested's early model jackets, it was more of just a subtle flare. Another detail is the size and shape of the collars. They're actually not that different, which kind of deflates the theory that the Last Crusade jacket had a noticeably larger collar than the previous jackets from Temple of Doom and Raiders. They're actually about the same size. And if you notice on the shape, it comes to a fairly sharp point here on the Raiders jacket. And the Crusade jacket's pretty much the same shape, a little bit more of a curve. Of course, this detail varied across the jacket since they made several dozen for all the movies, so there's variances in the jackets from shot to shot based on whichever machinist was cutting and tailoring the jackets for each movie. And with the hardware, you can see on this original Raiders jacket, circa 1998, the Italian Fiocchi Italy snaps, which Diego was able to source for their Smithsonian jacket replica. It's the exact same hardware. Also on the storm flap snaps, you can see the green patina on the brass, proving that these buttons are a couple decades old. And the same on the Wested jacket, which was manufactured in early 1998, over 20 years ago. You can see where the brass has actually corroded green on the zipper teeth, showing the age of the metal. And another interesting detail is the Crusade jacket, of course, has the brass D-rings, which Wested also used on their original release Raiders jackets, and they continue to do the same thing until today, although now you have an option of getting the D-ring or the square buckle. However, the square buckle that Wested offers on their jackets now is actually not quite correct. The original movie jackets actually had a black painted brass buckle exactly like this that the pull tab threaded through. Wested has these kind of very rectangular, symmetrically shaped buckle with a center divider in it, and this actually has brass teeth that go into the leather strap to hold it in place so that it can't loosen up. And the lining of the Raiders jacket, of course, was cotton, as they've always had, whereas Last Crusade jacket famously has the black satin acetate lining, or nylon, if you prefer. And then construction-wise, there's also variances. For example, in Wested's jacket pockets, the inside always has the jacket liner material on the inside front facing of the pocket, And the shell leather is on the back. On the Last Crusade Smithsonian model, there's a little leather flap scallop in there. And then you can see the batting visible beneath it. And on the back end of the jacket, the body shell is there, and there's also batting going down both sides, which I thought was kind of unusual. And then I asked Diego about it, and he verified that the Last Crusade jacket in the Smithsonian, the screen-used jacket, is constructed the exact same way. And another detail, on the lower corner of the back panel, Wested has this neat vertical seam sewn from the inside. Nice, clean, neat looking joint. And on the Crusade jacket, it's just overlapped and folded and sewn. There's a little kind of an opening, a pucker there, which can actually be glued shut with rubber cement. And I thought that was kind of unusual. And again, Diego confirmed that the movie jackets were constructed exactly like that, which proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that this is truly an exact verbatim clone of the jacket worn by Harrison Ford in Last Crusade, down to the very last detail. And the distressing, of course, is magnificent. I mean, Diego really replicated every nuance of the screen-used jacket on this replica. So this is virtually a clone of the movie jacket, as close as any of us are going to get to wearing the jacket that Harrison Ford had in the movie. And the attention to detail is absolutely unreal. This could have literally been plucked from the costume department at LC Studios in 1988. The arm seams are incredible too. It has a straight seam, there's no piping on it. It's a straight single line seam, which again diverts from the Raiders jacket, which famously has a folded and piped seam on the back side of the sleeve, whereas the inside of the sleeve has the single seam, like the Last Crusade jacket. I can't explain why they changed it from this model to this model, except that Peter Bottwright said that they evidently misplaced or lost the original Raiders jacket pattern between Raiders of the Lost Ark and the production of Last Crusade. So they had to recreate the Indy jacket from memory, essentially, which probably accounts for a lot of the differences. And probably the most notable difference is that the storm flap has snaps on it, which were actually designed by Lee Kepler, the pioneer of Indy gear, on his replica jackets that he was offering through various magazines and publications back in the 1980s for Indy gear collectors pre-internet. And his jackets found their way into the Lucasfilm archives. And when Anthony Powell was researching the jackets for the third movie, he and Harrison Ford selected one of Lee's jackets to replicate for the Last Crusade jacket, and it was one of the models with the storm flap buttons on it, and that's how that ended up in the film. So these two jackets definitely share a lot of the same lineage, and you can see exactly how Peter and Wested Leather manufactured the jackets for both films. And there they are.